Ever feel like, ugh, you know that feeling, right? Like you're stuck on a hamster wheel, working, 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 but not really getting ahead financially.
Yeah, I think we've all been there.
Well, today we are diving into a book that wants to blow up that hamster wheel. Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
It's a classic.
It really is. It's practically a cultural phenomenon at this point, wouldn't you say? It's been insanely popular since it came out.
Absolutely. It's been hugely influential in how people think about money and building wealth.
And we're tackling chapter 1 today, The Rich Don't Work for Money. We're going to unpack its core message and see why it's resonated with so many readers. You ready to dive in?
Let's do it.
Okay, so for anyone who hasn't read it, and if you haven't, seriously, add it to your list. The book is structured around the advice of these two father figures, Rich Dad and Poor Dad.
Right, and they represent very different perspectives on money.
Total opposites, actually. And this first chapter, it really sets the stage by introducing their totally different mindsets about money, which is fascinating right from the get-go. So in a nutshell, Rich Dad, Poor Dad argues that it's not about how much money you earn.
It's about what you do with it.
Exactly. It's about what you make that money do for you.
It's about building wealth, not just earning a paycheck.
And Rich Dad really emphasizes building assets, right? Things that put money in your pocket.
Exactly. Things like rental properties or businesses that generate income.
While Poor Dad, he represents that more, I don't know, maybe more traditional path, like getting a good job, working for a steady paycheck. So what are your initial thoughts on this central idea? I mean, it does seem a bit counterintuitive to how many of us are taught to think about money, right?
You're right. It really challenges those deeply ingrained beliefs that we often have about money. Like we're told to study hard, get a good job, and you'll be financially secure. But Kiyosaki kind of throws that out the window. And what makes his approach so thought-provoking, I think, is that he uses his own life as an example. He talks about how his poor dad, despite being highly educated and having a stable job as a teacher, actually struggled financially.
Yeah, that's such an important point. It's not just about having a job, it's about understanding how money works.
Exactly. And that's the big difference between rich dad and poor dad. Rich dad might not have had the same formal education, but he was really focused on building wealth through businesses and investments. And he taught Kiyosaki about the importance of financial literacy.
So it's not just about earning a paycheck, it's about understanding how money works
Yeah.
and then using that knowledge to create more of it.
Precisely. And I love that Rich Dad actually puts this into practice by having Kiyosaki and his friend work in his businesses as kids, but like not for a typical allowance.
Yeah, he makes them work for those lessons.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting approach to teaching kids about money, right?
No, it is. It wasn't about the immediate paycheck, It was about giving them firsthand experience with business and investing, about developing that financial literacy that Rich Dad saw as so crucial for building wealth.
Which is such a powerful idea. It's like
Yeah.
he's saying that understanding how money works is just as important as, if not more important than, traditional education.
Right. He even argues that traditional education often sets us up to be employees, not necessarily entrepreneurs or investors. And this leads us to, I think, one of the most impactful concepts from the book, assets versus liabilities.
Yeah, that's a big one. Break that down for us.
Sure. So an asset, in the simplest terms, is something that puts money in your pocket. It's something you own that increases in value over time.
Give us some examples.
Okay, so think about a rental property. It generates income every month from rent, or a business that's turning a profit, right? Or even stocks that pay dividends. These are all assets.
Okay, so what's a liability?
A liability is basically the opposite. It's something that takes money out of your pocket, like, say, a car payment, credit card debt, or even a large mortgage on a house you're living in but not renting out.
So it's not just about earning a lot of money. It's about what you do with the money you earn.
Yeah, it's about whether you use that money to acquire things that will continue to generate income or things that will essentially drain your bank account over time. It's about thinking long term and making your money work for you, even while you sleep.
It's about being financially savvy with whatever you have.
Yeah.
And that's where the whole mindset shift comes in.
Exactly. Rich Dad is all about encouraging us to think like investors, even if we don't have a ton of money to start with. It's about constantly looking for opportunities to acquire assets, even if it's in small ways.
That makes a lot of sense. But I can also see how this whole idea of like shifting your mindset, building assets, it might feel a bit daunting to some people. Like, do you have to quit your job and start a business to achieve financial freedom? Can someone with a regular 9-to-5 job still put these principles into practice? What would you say to those folks?
Those are great questions. And it's important to point out that you absolutely don't need to become an entrepreneur to apply these principles. It's more about, like we were saying, shifting your mindset and your financial habits. So even while you have a traditional job, start thinking about ways to build assets. Like consistently investing a portion of your paycheck, even if it's a small amount, is a way to acquire assets, right?
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Stocks, bonds, mutual funds, things like that.
exactly. It's about making your money work for you, regardless of how much you're earning at your job.
So it all comes back to being financially literate, understanding your options, and making informed decisions about your money.
Absolutely. And there's actually a quote from the chapter that I think sums this up perfectly. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, here it is. The single most powerful asset we all have is our mind. If it is trained well, it can create enormous wealth.
Ooh, I like that. That's a good one. It really speaks to the power of financial education and being intentional about how you think about money.
It really does. Knowledge is power, as they say.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Chapter 1 of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, what would you say are some key takeaways that our listeners can, I don't know, maybe start applying in their own lives, like today?
Well, I'd say the first step is really internal. Start distinguishing between assets and liabilities in your own life. Like actually look at your finances and ask yourself, what's putting money in my pocket right now and what's taking it out?
It's an eye-opening exercise for sure.
It really is. And once you have a clear picture of that, you can start thinking about ways to build more assets.
Even if it's just small steps at first, like setting up automatic investments, or maybe even just reading a book or taking a course to learn more about investing.
Exactly. It's about progress, not perfection.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to remember that financial literacy is a journey. It's not a destination, right? It's something you work on and continue to learn about over time.
I agree. It's an ongoing process of learning and adapting.
Okay, so before we wrap up completely, are you ready for a little sneak peek at what's coming up in Chapter 2?
Hit me with it.
All right, so next time, Kiyosaki really gets into some of the psychological barriers we face around money. Like, he digs into that often avoided topic of fear of failure, fear of losing money, and how it affects our financial decisions.
Ooh, that's a big one. I'm curious to hear what he has to say about that.
No, you and me both. He also dives into the history of money, which sounds a little dry, maybe, but it's actually super fascinating.
Yeah, I've always found economic history to be pretty interesting. Like, how did we even get to the system we have now?
Exactly. And he also challenges conventional wisdom about why it's so important to teach our children about money. It's going to be a good one.
I'm ready for it. Let's do it.
All right. But first, let's listen to the summary of this first chapter in the book.
Chapter 1. The Rich Don't Work for Money. In the first chapter of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki introduces the two father figures who shaped his perspective on money and financial success. His biological father, referred to as Poor Dad, was highly educated, had a stable government job, and believed in the traditional route of working hard, saving money, and climbing the corporate ladder. In contrast, his best friend Mike's father, known as Rich Dad, didn't have much formal education, but became wealthy through entrepreneurship and investing. From an early age, Kiyosaki realized that these two men had radically different approaches to money. The storyline begins when Kiyosaki and his friend Mike are curious about how to make money. They see their classmates enjoying the latest toys while their own families struggle to keep up. When Robert asks his biological father how to become rich, he tells him to study hard and get a good job. Unsatisfied with this answer, Robert and Mike turn to Mike's father, Rich Dad, who agrees to teach them about money, but only if they are willing to work and learn. Rich Dad starts by hiring Robert and Mike to work at one of his small stores for very low wages. The boys quickly become frustrated with the low pay and repetitive tasks, thinking that this isn't the way to get rich. But that's exactly what Rich Dad wants them to learn. He explains that most people fall into the trap of working harder and harder for a paycheck, but true wealth doesn't come from earning more. It comes from making money work for you. One day, Rich Dad teaches them a crucial lesson. The poor and the middle class work for money. The rich have money work for them. He explains that most people are trapped in the rat race, where they spend their lives working for someone else, relying on wages to get by. Rich Dad encourages Robert and Mike to think differently, urging them to look for opportunities to create income streams that don't depend on their direct labor, like investments in real estate or businesses. By the end of the chapter, Robert and Mike realize that their real education has just begun. They understand that in order to become wealthy, they must learn how to control their emotions, particularly fear and desire, which often drive people to work harder for money, rather than learning how to make money work for them. Rich Dad's first lesson is clear. Financial success requires a different mindset, one that is focused on building wealth through smart investments and not just through hard work.
Wow. Um, that first chapter of Rich Dad, Poor Dad,
Yeah.
it really,
Mm-hmm.
it really got me thinking.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting how he talked about, his two dads and and how
Mhm.
differently they thought about money. And it's like,
Absolutely.
it's such a simple concept, but it's amazing how much it impacts your life.
Well, and it's funny because we're told, you go to school, you get good grades, you get a good job,
Right.
but no one really teaches us about money.
Exactly.
Like how to manage it, how to make it grow, how to escape, like the rat race, right?
Right. And that's what this whole book is about, right? Like
Yeah.
it's called Rich Dad, Poor Dad for a reason.
Yeah.
Because it's all about breaking free from that traditional thinking.
Exactly. And in this chapter, he really kind of throws a curveball at us, right?
Yeah.
With this whole idea of a house being a liability.
I know.
I mean, that's like everyone's dream, right? To own a house.
Yeah.
But he makes this really interesting point.
Hmm.
He says, if your house is costing you money every month, like you've got your mortgage payments, property taxes, insurance, all that stuff, and it's not generating any income,
Yeah.
it's actually a liability.
Like a money pit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it really makes you think differently about assets versus liabilities, right?
It does. It's like you always hear people say, oh, real estate is a great investment.
Right.
But then you read this and it's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
It's not always that simple, is it?
No, it's not. And he gives this example of these two people.
Okay.
One who makes a ton of money, but they spend it all on liabilities.
Right.
Fancy cars, big house, you name it.
Yeah.
And then there's this other person who makes a modest income,
Mm-hmm.
but they're smart with their money.
Okay.
Invest it in assets, things that generate income.
Yep.
And in the long run,
Yeah.
who do you think ends up ahead?
The person who invested in assets, right?
Exactly.
Even though they didn't make as much money to begin with.
It's not about how much you earn, it's about what you do with what you earn.
That's so true.
And that's the power of financial literacy.
I think for me, one of the biggest takeaways from this chapter is that it's never too early to start thinking about this stuff.
Absolutely.
You don't have to be making a ton of money to start building good financial habits.
Exactly.
It's all about making smart choices with the money that you do have.
And that's what he's really trying to get across in this chapter.
Well, on that note, now that we understand the meaning behind the second chapter, let's listen to the storyline summary.
Chapter 2, Why Teach Financial Literacy? In Chapter 2, Kiyosaki delves deeper into the importance of financial literacy and why it's crucial for building long-term wealth. He begins by emphasizing that many people mistakenly believe that the key to wealth is earning more money. However, without proper financial knowledge, even those who earn a lot can still struggle financially. Kiyosaki's Rich Dad explains that it's not about how much money you make, but how much money you keep, and more importantly, how you manage it. Kiyosaki uses the example of his poor dad, who had a stable job and a good salary, but constantly worried about money. His poor dad followed the traditional belief that financial security comes from earning a higher income and saving money. In contrast, Rich Dad believed that financial success comes from understanding how money works, particularly the difference between assets and liabilities. Rich Dad explains that financial literacy is the foundation of wealth, and he teaches Robert and Mike that the most important thing is to invest in income-generating assets. Rich Dad's key lesson in this chapter is to understand the difference between an asset and a liability. An asset, he explains, is anything that puts money into your pocket, while a liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. Many people, he argues, confuse the two. For example, most people consider their home an asset, but if it doesn't generate income, it's actually a liability because it requires ongoing expenses like mortgage payments, taxes, and maintenance. The storyline continues with Rich Dad encouraging Robert and Mike to focus on building their asset column. He explains that wealthy people grow their assets, things like stocks, bonds, real estate, and businesses, while minimizing their liabilities. Poor and middle-class people, on the other hand, tend to accumulate liabilities, such as mortgages, car loans, and credit card debt, thinking they are acquiring assets. This misunderstanding, Rich Dad warns, is what keeps many people financially insecure, even if they earn a high salary. By the end of the chapter, Kiyosaki reflects on how this lesson from Rich Dad transformed his understanding of wealth. He realized that financial literacy, knowing how to identify and acquire assets, is the key to building lasting financial security. Without this knowledge, even people with high incomes can struggle to manage their money effectively. The chapter concludes with a strong message. To be rich, you must focus on financial education and learn how to build and manage your own assets.
Chapter 3, Mind Your Own Business,
Hmm.
is like a masterclass in building wealth.
It really is. This chapter is the cornerstone of Kiyosaki's philosophy. He doesn't beat around the bush.
No, he doesn't. He jumps right in with this statement. The rich focus on their asset columns while everyone else focuses on their income statements.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so before we even get into minding our own business, can you break that down for us? What's the difference between assets and income, and why is that distinction so important?
Sure, it's all about understanding where your money's going, and more importantly, what it's doing once it gets there. So, assets, think of those as your money-making machines. They put money in your pocket,
Mm.
even while you're sleeping.
Okay.
Rental income, dividends from stocks, royalties, businesses that don't require you to be there 24/7.
Passive income.
Exactly, that's the golden ticket. On the other hand, you have liabilities. Those are the things that suck money out of your pocket, like a money pit. Your car payment, credit card debt, even that mortgage, though that can be a bit of a gray area depending on your perspective.
Okay, so assets good, liabilities.
Not so much.
Got it. So when he says mind your own business, he's not just saying go start a company.
Right. It's bigger than that. It's about building a life where your money works for you, not the other way around. Instead of trading your time for a paycheck that gets eaten up by those liabilities, you build up that asset column. You create a system where money flows in, regardless of whether you're clocking in or not.
And that's what leads to financial freedom, right?
Yeah.
Not being dependent on a job to survive.
Exactly. It's about having options, the freedom to choose how you spend your time and resources.
And he doesn't sugarcoat it. He says, if you don't mind your own business, you essentially end up working for everyone else.
Right. You become a slave to the paycheck. You work hard, you make money, but then where does it go? Taxes for the government, interest to the banks, maybe even buying things to impress people you don't even like?
It's a vicious cycle.
It is, and breaking free requires a conscious shift in mindset.
So how do we do that? He talks about building an asset column with stocks, bonds, real estate businesses. Those seem like pretty big things, especially for someone just starting out, right? Where do you even begin?
Sure. I think a lot of people get overwhelmed by those examples, thinking they need a ton of money or business experience to get started, but it can be much simpler.
Okay.
It's about changing your relationship with money, shifting your perspective. Instead of seeing a surplus as a chance to splurge, think about how you could invest it, even a small amount, to generate more money down the line.
So even if you're starting small, it's about getting into that investor mindset.
Exactly. It's about making your money work for you, even in small ways at first. Maybe you start by investing in a low-cost index fund, or you learn a new skill you can use to generate side income. Every little bit helps.
It's like that saying, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today.
I like that. It's never too late to start building your own financial tree.
Absolutely. And that brings us to another crucial point Kiyosaki makes. It's not just about working harder. It's about thinking differently. He says the rich and the average person have completely different views on spending and investing. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah. The average person tends to focus on instant gratification, on buying things that provide immediate pleasure, even if it means going into debt. The rich, on the other hand, are playing the long game. They're willing to delay gratification, to make sacrifices in the present to build a more secure and abundant future.
It's like that marshmallow experiment they did with kids, right? Right.
Exactly. The kids who could resist eating the marshmallow in front of them for a bigger reward later, those kids were more likely to succeed later in life. They had developed that ability to delay gratification, to think long term.
It's all connected. It's about having a vision for the future and making choices today that align with that vision.
Absolutely. And it's not easy. I'll admit I still struggle with it sometimes. But it's a conscious effort, a daily choice to prioritize long-term goals over short-term desires.
It's like building a muscle, right? The more you practice, the easier it becomes.
Exactly. And like any muscle, it needs to be exercised regularly.
So for our listeners who are hearing this and feeling pumped, ready to start minding their own business, what's one concrete step they can take today?
Well, Kiyosaki talks a lot about the importance of financial education, and honestly, I think that's the best place to start. Invest in yourself, read books, listen to podcasts, take courses, seek out mentors.
Arm yourself with knowledge.
Yes. Because knowledge is power when it comes to your finances. The more you understand about money, investing, and building wealth, the better equipped you'll be to make informed decisions that will benefit your future.
That's great advice. Chapter 3, Mind Your Own Business, a real wake-up call and a roadmap for financial freedom.
For sure.
Now that we understand the meaning behind the third chapter, let's listen to the storyline summary. But before we jump to the next chapter, let's leave our listeners with something to think about. Imagine you could design your ideal asset column today. What would it look like? What kind of assets would you build? And why? Let us know.
Chapter 3, Mind Your Own Business. In Chapter 3, Kiyosaki shifts the focus to the importance of focusing on your personal financial growth rather than merely working for someone else's financial success. He begins with a simple but powerful piece of advice from Rich Dad. The rich focus on their asset columns, while everyone else focuses on their income statements. This means that instead of just working for a paycheck, wealthy people concentrate on building their wealth through assets that generate income. Kiyosaki reflects on how most people spend their lives working for other people, whether it's for their employers, the government, through taxes, or the bank, through paying interest on loans. He explains that while it's important to have a job to cover living expenses, it's essential to also build something for yourself on the side. This could be in the form of investments, a business, or other assets that generate income independently of your day job. Rich Dad tells Robert and Mike to mind their own business, meaning they should focus on building their own wealth, even if they are working for someone else. The chapter takes a deeper look at how most people fall into the trap of accumulating liabilities, thinking they are building wealth. Many middle-class people invest in a house, cars, and other luxury items, believing these things are assets. However, Rich Dad teaches that unless these items generate income, they are actually liabilities because they take money out of your pocket. He urges Robert and Mike to focus on growing their asset columns by acquiring things like real estate, stocks, or businesses that put money into their pockets. Kiyosaki shares his personal experience of how he began to mind his own business by slowly building his asset column, even while he worked a regular job. He explains that he used his spare time to learn about real estate and make small investments. Over time, these investments started generating income, which allowed him to reduce his reliance on a paycheck. This is a key point in the chapter. The wealthy build their financial independence by growing assets, so they don't have to rely on a paycheck forever. By the end of the chapter, Kiyosaki emphasizes the need to shift from a mindset of working for money to one of building assets that generate income. He encourages readers to stop thinking of their job as their only source of income and to start focusing on how to create streams of passive income. The lesson here is simple. Mind your own business by growing your asset column, and over time, you'll gain financial independence.
Wow, that chapter 3 really packs a punch, right? I don't know about you, but it left me thinking about the real lessons, the ones about money and success. Kiyosaki really has a way of making you see things differently.
Yeah, definitely.
But get ready, because Chapter 4 of Rich Dad, Poor Dad takes us down a different road. We're diving into the world of corporations and taxes. Not exactly light dinner conversation, but definitely important stuff.
Right, you got that right.
So Kiyosaki comes right out and says it, corporations are the secret of the rich.
Yeah.
It's like, boom, wake-up call.
Yeah, it makes you stop and think, that's for sure. It's provocative.
What do you think? Is he trying to be provocative, or is he just stating a fact?
I think it's a bit of both. He wants to shake us out of our comfort zones and see things from a different angle. And, he backs it up by talking about the history of taxes. It's interesting stuff.
Right.
Because, when you think about it, taxes, as we know them today, weren't always this way. They were actually...
Yeah, who were they for originally?
Initially, they were meant for the wealthy. That was the whole idea.
It's like the world turned upside down. Now it sometimes feels like the middle class carries a heavier load. But then Kiyosaki drops the knowledge bomb. The wealthy have been using corporations as a shield for their wealth for ages.
And that's a huge point. He's not saying it's wrong or right, but he's saying, hey, this is what's happening, and if you don't understand it, you're missing out.
Exactly. It's about leveling the playing field,
That
right? Having access to the same information.
Exactly. It's all about knowledge and then what you do with it. He breaks down how the system works for corporations. Like when you're an employee, you get your paycheck, pay taxes on that income, and live on what's left right.
Yeah.
Corporations have a whole different set of rules, though.
So it's not about making more, necessarily. It's what you do with what you make that really matters. Is that what he's saying?
Right. It's about being smart with your money. Kiyosaki talks about how corporations can spend money on business expenses, things like, salaries, equipment, even travel.
Makes sense.
And here's the kicker. They're only taxed on what's left over, the profit. He calls this strategic expense allocation, and it can be a real game changer when it comes to reducing their tax burden.
It makes you wonder why they don't teach this stuff in school. It feels like something everyone should know, regardless of their income level. It's like financial literacy 101, right?
Absolutely. Understanding these concepts can be incredibly empowering, especially for people who are trying to build wealth.
Definitely.
And there's more to it, too. Kiyosaki also talks about the importance of separating your business and personal finances, and that's where incorporating can really shine. It offers a layer of protection that most people don't realize.
Like a safety net, if something goes wrong with the business.
Exactly. It's about mitigating risk. Think of it as building a fortress around your personal assets, protecting them from things like lawsuits or business debts.
That's a powerful image, a fortress. I like that. And it underscores that we're not just talking about quick riches here. It's about long-term financial security and making smart choices for the future.
Right. It's about building a solid foundation step by step.
Yeah,
And education is a key part of that.
absolutely.
Kiyosaki is all about financial education. He's not saying everyone needs to be a tax expert or anything, but understanding the basics, how taxes work, the ins and outs of legal structures like corporations, that's empowering.
I totally agree. I was talking to a friend the other day. She runs a small design business, and she was so intimidated by the thought of incorporating. She thought it was only for these huge companies,
Yeah, a lot of people think that. It
Yeah.
can be daunting if you don't know what you're getting into.
Yeah, but once we talked about the potential benefits, the tax advantages, the asset protection, it's like a light bulb went off.
That's the power of knowledge, right? It can change your whole perspective.
Exactly. Kiyosaki's big on that. It's not just about throwing these concepts out there. It's about understanding them and using them to your advantage. He really wants readers to grasp that knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power, for sure.
Yeah. He's basically saying, look, you can take control of your financial future. It's not some far-fetched dream. It's achievable if you're willing to put in the effort, learn, and take action.
And if you're not afraid to ask questions, right?
Exactly.
There are resources out there to help. Books, courses, even talking to a financial advisor who can guide you.
Absolutely. There's a whole world of information at our fingertips these days.
And mentors. Don't forget about mentors.
Oh, yeah. Like having a guide on the side, right? Someone who's been there.
Exactly. Finding people you trust who can share their experiences, offer advice, it can make a huge difference.
I completely agree.
Especially when it comes to something as important as your financial well-being.
This chapter is packed with so much valuable stuff. It's
You
like
don't know, right?
you need to go back and reread it, highlight things, really let it sink in.
Yeah. Take notes. It's dense, but it's worth it.
But for now, though, we do have to move on, which pains me. Now that we understand the meaning behind the third chapter, let's listen to the storyline summary.
Okay, yeah. Sounds good.
Man, we are just scratching the surface here. I can't wait to dig deeper into Kiyosaki's world.
Me neither. It's fascinating stuff.
I've got a feeling real estate is on the horizon. Something tells me we'll be talking about bricks and mortar very soon.
Oh, yeah. Real estate. A classic wealth building tool. Looking forward to it.
It's always such a pleasure picking your brain about these ideas. I really appreciate your insights.
Always happy to chat. These deep dives are great. I learn something new every time.
And to all our listeners out there, we'll leave you with this. If corporations truly are the secret of the rich, what's one small step you can take today to unlock that secret for yourself?
Chapter 4, The History of Taxes and the Power of Corporations. In Chapter 4, Kiyosaki introduces the concept of how the wealthy use corporations and the tax system to their advantage, while most people work harder and end up paying more in taxes. He begins by providing a brief history of taxes, explaining that taxes were initially introduced as a way to tax the wealthy, but over time, they began to affect the middle class more heavily. This chapter highlights how the rich have learned to navigate the tax system and use it to their benefit. Kiyosaki explains that most people earn money, pay taxes on their income, and then try to live on what's left. This is the typical way employees are taxed. In contrast, the wealthy, through their corporations, earn money, spend on expenses, such as business-related travel, meals, and entertainment, and then pay taxes on whatever remains. Rich Dad introduces Robert and Mike to the idea that the rich use legal entities like corporations to reduce their tax burden, allowing them to grow their wealth faster than those who are taxed at high rates on personal income. Rich Dad also teaches the boys about the legal protection that corporations provide. He explains that corporations act as a shield, separating personal assets from business liabilities. This way, if something goes wrong in the business, the personal wealth of the individual is protected. Kiyosaki emphasizes that many people are unaware of these legal and financial strategies, which is why they end up paying higher taxes and taking on more risk personally. Corporations, he explains, allow the wealthy to take risks while safeguarding their personal wealth. The storyline in this chapter shifts to Rich Dad, showing Robert and Mike how wealthy people legally take advantage of tax loopholes. He points out that many wealthy individuals reinvest much of their earnings back into their businesses or assets, reducing their taxable income. They use tax-deductible expenses to cover many of their personal needs, effectively reducing their tax liabilities while continuing to build their wealth. Kiyosaki explains that while these strategies may seem out of reach for the average person, learning about them is a key step in achieving financial independence. By the end of the chapter, Kiyosaki emphasizes the importance of financial education and understanding how taxes work. He encourages readers to learn more about how corporations operate and to consider how they might use similar strategies to grow their own wealth. The message is clear. Those who understand how to use corporations and the tax system to their advantage will be able to build and protect their wealth more effectively than those who rely solely on wages and pay taxes at high rates.
Hey everyone, and welcome back. Man, that last chapter really got me thinking, like really got under my skin. But we got to keep moving, you know?
Not to the next one.
Exactly. So chapter 5 of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. This is the one called The Rich Invent Money.
Yeah, this is a big one.
This is a big one, and I'm already getting like a little intimidated, you know? The rich invent money. Like, am I supposed to build a money machine? What's he talking about here?
Well, Kiyosaki, he's never been one to shy away from a bold statement, right?
Right.
And he kicks this chapter off with a real doozy. Often in the real world, it's not the smart who get ahead, but the bold.
Okay. See, when I read that, I kind of bristled a little bit.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I like to think of myself as reasonably intelligent.
Hmm.
And it felt like he was saying, brains, doesn't matter, throw it out the window. Like, is it really just about being bold?
Well, hold on. I don't think he's dismissing intelligence entirely. I think what he's getting at is that knowledge without action, it's like, well, it's like having a car but never driving it. You got to actually put those smarts to work.
Yeah.
You know, think about that real estate story he tells in this chapter.
Yeah.
He sees the potential in that deal, but it's because he's out there looking.
Right.
He's ready to make a move while everyone else is still, you know, analyzing spreadsheets or whatever.
He's already out the door.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's that combination, the insight, ND, the guts to act. I think that's how he invents money.
Yeah, and it seems like a big part of Kiyosaki's whole philosophy is recognizing opportunities that other people miss. Which brings us to another big idea from this chapter, that wealth isn't finite. He says it's not like there's a limited pie, and if one person gets a bigger slice, someone else has to get a smaller one.
Right. He's saying wealth is something you create.
Exactly. But he's also very big on this whole financial intelligence thing.
Yes.
And I think for a lot of people, myself included, that can feel a little vague. Like, what does that even mean, financial intelligence?
Well, I think for Kiyosaki, it boils down to understanding how money works. And I don't just mean knowing how to earn a paycheck. It's bigger than that.
Okay.
It's about understanding things like cash flow, how investments work, the different asset classes.
Right.
He's talking about mastering the tools, you know? The same way the rich dad in his life used leverage and smart investments to, as he puts it, create more wealth.
So it's about strategy.
It's about strategy.
Nice.
Exactly. It's not just about working harder. It's about working smarter with the money you have.
which I think is where a lot of people get tripped up, right? Because even if you start to wrap your head around these concepts, there's this fear factor that comes into play.
Oh, absolutely. Fear is huge. Kiyosaki talks about how fear of failure keeps so many people stuck.
Frozen, yeah.
And it makes sense, right? It's natural to want to avoid losing money. But here's the thing. If you're so afraid of risk that you never take any, you're basically guaranteeing that your money will just kind of sit there.
You're playing it too safe.
You're playing it way too safe. And you'll never really see the growth that you could. Kiyosaki argues that successful people, they don't see failure the same way.
Okay, how do they see it?
They see setbacks as part of the process.
Yeah.
They learn from it, they adapt, and they come back stronger. They don't let it stop them.
So it's not the end of the world if you make a mistake.
Exactly. It's a learning experience. It's all part of the journey, right?
So for our listeners out there who are maybe feeling a little fired up, maybe a little overwhelmed, and they're thinking, okay, all this sounds great in theory, but where do I even start? What's one small step, something actionable that someone can do today to start shifting their mindset towards this rich dad philosophy?
You know what? Start small. Just dip your toe in the water. The key is to be proactive, engage with this stuff.
Right, because knowledge is power, right?
Absolutely. And the more you learn, the more you start to see those opportunities that Kiyosaki is always talking about.
So before we jump into the story part of this chapter, any final thoughts on this whole concept of inventing money?
It really boils down to shifting your perspective. Stop seeing limitations and start seeing possibilities.
I like that.
Cultivate that rich dad mindset. Become a student of money, and never be afraid to learn and adapt. That's how you make money work for you instead of the other way around.
Powerful stuff. All right, listeners, now that we've unpacked some of the big ideas, let's dive into the story and see how these lessons play out in action. Now that we understand the meaning behind the 5th chapter, let's listen to the storyline summary.
Chapter 5, The Rich Invent Money. In Chapter 5, Kiyosaki explores the idea that the rich don't just work for money, they create it. The chapter begins with Rich Dad explaining that opportunities are everywhere, but most people aren't trained to see them. The wealthy, however, have developed the ability to spot opportunities that others overlook, and they take action to capitalize on them. Rich Dad emphasizes the importance of financial intelligence in being able to invent money by creating opportunities where none seem to exist. Kiyosaki shares a personal story of how he and his wife used a creative approach to invest in a small real estate deal. They didn't have a lot of money at the time, but they saw an opportunity that others had missed. Through persistence, education, and a willingness to take calculated risks, they were able to turn the investment into a profitable venture. This is a key theme of the chapter. Financial success doesn't always come from having a lot of money to begin with, but from the ability to recognize and act on opportunities. Rich Dad explains to Robert and Mike that the wealthy invent money by being proactive and looking for ways to generate income. They don't wait for opportunities to fall into their laps, nor do they rely on someone else's paycheck. Instead, they create wealth through investments, businesses, or other ventures that bring in passive income. Kiyosaki contrasts this with the mindset of the average person, who waits for a secure job or a good salary rather than taking control of their financial future. One of the key lessons in this chapter is overcoming fear and self-doubt. Kiyosaki points out that many people miss out on opportunities because they are afraid of failure or because they listen to negative advice from others. Rich Dad teaches that while failure is a natural part of taking risks, it is also a valuable learning experience. The rich understand that mistakes can lead to growth, while those who are paralyzed by fear never give themselves the chance to succeed. By the end of the chapter, Kiyosaki encourages readers to change their mindset about money. Instead of thinking that opportunities are limited or that only the lucky succeed, he suggests that everyone has the potential to create wealth. It simply requires developing financial intelligence, being willing to take risks, and learning to see opportunities where others see obstacles. The key lesson is that wealth can be invented through creativity, financial knowledge, and the willingness to act.
Whoa. Last chapter nearly gave me a heart attack, Buying that property, talk about a cliffhanger.
I know, right? And just when we thought we could breathe, Kiyosaki hits us with this Chapter 6 title, Work to Learn, Don't work for money.
Seriously. It's like, what is that even possible in this day and age?
It's classic Kiyosaki, though, shaking things up, making us question everything we thought we knew about, well, work. Like, we're conditioned to think a good job equals security, right?
Totally. And he's basically saying, hold my drink, I'm about to challenge that. He's all about that learning path, less traveled and all. And the difference between his rich dad and his educated dad,
Right.
is huge. One's all about specializing, the other.
He's all about becoming this well-rounded figure. Remember that Xerox story?
Oh, yeah.
Took a pay cut to learn sales.
Investing in himself.
Exactly. A skill that translates no matter what business you're in.
I
That took guts, though.
Have you ever been in a spot like that? Choosing to learn over earning more, at least initially? It's tough, man.
See, that's Kiyosaki's point, though. Specializing can be limiting. Imagine being a fantastic engineer who can't talk to people, can't sell an idea, can't even manage a team. You're only as good as your weakest link, right?
And suddenly, being a jack of all trades doesn't sound so bad. He wants us to be the whole package deal, not just one ingredient. Run the restaurant, not just bake the cake.
Precisely. Especially now, technology, entrepreneurship, you got to wear different hats, constantly learning, adapting. And one thing he stressed that stuck with me, communication.
Oh, absolutely. And not just like being charming, but truly getting your ideas across.
Oh, yeah.
Persuasion, influence, building those relationships. Those are universal skills no matter what field you're in. It's like he said, job security, that was his educated dad. But learning, that was rich dad all the way.
And that sums up the whole chapter right there.
Yeah.
Forget the paycheck, focus on the knowledge, become so valuable they can't ignore you. What can you learn? What value can you offer? Those are the questions.
Boom. Mic drop. It's not about the money in your pocket. It's the knowledge you gain.
Right.
Now that we understand the meaning behind the 6th chapter, let's listen to the storyline summary.
You know, before we move on, think about this. What's one skill you've always wanted to learn? Something that could unlock new possibilities. It's worth considering, wouldn't you say?
Chapter 6. Work to learn. Don't work for money. In Chapter 6, Kiyosaki shifts the focus from making money to the importance of learning in order to achieve financial success. He begins by explaining that most people work for money, hoping to climb the corporate ladder and earn higher salaries. However, Rich Dad taught him that the true purpose of work should be to learn valuable skills, not just to earn a paycheck. This is a major difference in mindset between the rich and the middle class. Rich Dad said, "Job security meant everything to my educated dad. Learning meant everything to my rich dad." Kiyosaki shares that his rich dad encouraged him and Mike to work in various jobs, not for the money, but to learn different skills. He believed that financial success comes from having a wide range of knowledge, including how to manage people, sell products, and understand the basics of accounting. By working to learn rather than to earn, they would be better prepared to run their own businesses and manage their investments in the future. This chapter stresses the importance of diversifying your skill set rather than specializing in one field and relying on a single source of income. Rich Dad emphasizes that learning how to sell and communicate effectively is one of the most important skills anyone can develop. Kiyosaki recounts how he took a job as a salesman for Xerox to improve his communication and sales skills. While the job wasn't glamorous, the skills he learned proved invaluable when he later became an entrepreneur. He explains that the ability to sell is crucial in business, whether it's selling a product, negotiating deals, or managing employees. Rich Dad believed that formal education was important but limited in terms of real-world financial success. He urged Robert and Mike to focus on financial literacy, learning about money, investments, and how businesses operate. Rich Dad's point was clear. While many people spend their lives working for money, the truly successful people use work as a tool for learning and building skills that will allow them to make money work for them. By the end of the chapter, Kiyosaki reflects on the difference between those who work to earn a paycheck and those who work to gain knowledge. He encourages readers to seek out jobs and opportunities that will help them learn new skills, even if the pay isn't high. The long-term benefits of acquiring knowledge, especially in areas like sales, management, and finance, far outweigh the short-term gains of a higher salary. The key takeaway is that financial success comes from continuous learning and developing a broad range of skills.
All right. Ready to dive back in?
Yeah.
Man, that last chapter. with Robert and Mike jumping into that comic book gig.
Yeah.
Talk about a crash course in making opportunities happen. Right?
Absolutely, really brought those lessons to life.
But buckle up, because Chapter 7 of Rich Dad, Poor Dad is like, hold on, we're going deeper. We're tackling those obstacles, the kind we carry around in our own heads.
As internal roadblocks, right?
Yeah. Get ready for overcoming obstacles, because sometimes the biggest thing between us and financial success is, well, us.
Exactly. And Kiyosaki, he goes straight to the heart of it. He's saying it's not always market crashes or some secret formula. It's those internal barriers that trip us up. Fear, cynicism, the whole shebang.
Okay, so let's break it down, starting with fear, and I think the big one, fear of failure. I mean, come on, who hasn't hesitated to make a move financially because, what if I lose everything? It's normal, right?
Totally normal. But here's the twist. Kiyosaki argues that the wealthy, they don't let fear paralyze them. They almost use it like fuel. They see fear as a signal. Analyze, adjust, try again.
It's like fear becomes this rapid learning process.
Exactly.
So it's not about being totally fearless. It's how you roll with those punches. Are you telling me I need to, like, befriend my fear?
In a sense, yeah. Kiyosaki's Rich Dad puts it so well. Failure inspires winners. Failure defeats losers. Reframing failure as part of the process, not the end of the line.
About bouncing back, taking those lessons and using them for that next move. All right, so fear, check. But then there's cynicism, right? The doubts, the negativity. Sometimes it's external. Sometimes it's our own inner critic going overtime. What do we do with that?
This is where Kiyosaki is all about thinking for yourself. Don't just follow the crowd, especially with your money. Do the research, look at the facts, and make decisions from a place of knowledge.
Don't just take someone's word for it, especially if they haven't done the work themselves right. So a little skepticism can be a good thing.
Absolutely. He ties cynicism to a lack of understanding, that fear of the unknown. Boost your financial literacy, understanding how money works, budgeting, investing, and you start to break down those cynical walls.
Makes sense, right? The more you understand, the less intimidating it all is.
Yeah.
Okay, on to laziness. But I feel like Kiyosaki doesn't just mean, being a couch potato.
You got it. He's talking about a sneaky kind of laziness, neglecting those crucial money moves because we're too busy.
Oh, yeah. Procrastination.
That's it.
Life gets hectic. It's easy to push aside financial planning. It's like, I'll get to it later.
And Kiyosaki gets it. But he also challenges us, saying, let's get real about priorities. Schedule that time for learning, even 30 minutes a day. Realistic goals, what keeps you motivated. Those small, consistent actions, that's where the magic happens.
Building a habit, right? Like anything else worth doing. Okay, on to those bad habits. Everyone's got them, but when it comes to money, they can really throw us off track.
Absolutely. And for this, Kiyosaki's got the strategy, pay yourself first. Before spending, prioritize savings and investments. Decide what's going to your future self, then budget the rest.
So instead of saving leftovers, you're making your financial well-being non-negotiable. It's like giving your future self a paycheck right off the bat.
Exactly. Flipping that script on how we usually budget. Okay, last but not least, we've got arrogance. Now, he's not talking about everyday confidence here, right?
Yeah, I'm curious about this one too. What does he mean by arrogance in this context?
He means that closed-mindedness that blocks learning and growth, thinking we've got it all figured out, which, with finances, can be a danger zone.
Because there's always something new to learn, right?
Yeah.
Markets shift, new strategies pop up. What worked yesterday might not cut it tomorrow.
And Kiyosaki nails it with another one of Rich Dad's zingers. What I know makes me money. What I don't know loses me money. You got to be open to always learning, getting advice when you need it, and admitting you don't have all the answers.
So we've got these 5 roadblocks, these internal things that can really mess us up when we're trying to build that financial success.
And what I think is so smart about how Kiyosaki writes this chapter, he doesn't just leave it hanging as theory.
He brings it all to life with Robert and Mike's experiences.
Right. Exactly. Remember back in chapter 6 when they're working at that convenience store for peanuts? Kiyosaki, he uses that whole thing to show how these obstacles pop up in the real world.
It's like he's saying, look, this isn't just some idea. This is how it actually goes down.
Right. Like, remember how Robert, he's scared of losing money, even though they're barely making anything? Rich Dad uses that to drive home that, yeah, fear is normal, but how you deal with it, that's what separates, everyone else from the winners.
The ones who figure it out are the ones who've looked fear right in the face and learned from it, right?
Yeah, and then there's cynicism, right? Remember Mike's dad, the poor dad mindset in action? He was always questioning Rich Dad's methods. doubting everything, especially this whole different approach to education and careers.
Oh, totally. He just couldn't understand why Rich Dad wasn't pushing those safe career paths, the traditional stuff.
And that clash, that's Kiyosaki showing us how cynicism, a lot of times it comes from not quite grasping how wealth building works, accepting the way things have always been done.
Like, if you don't get it, it's way easier to be cynical about it.
Exactly. Rich Dad's always pushing Robert and Mike to think for themselves, to question everything, and to come to their own conclusions.
It's about breaking out of those inherited beliefs and saying, hold on, maybe there's a different way. Okay, but then there's laziness. But they're out there working, even if it's for almost nothing, so how's that an obstacle?
Remember, Kiyosaki's got that different definition of lazy.
It's about neglecting your financial education, not just being lazy in general, right?
Right. It's being too busy with other stuff to focus on what really matters long term, your financial well-being.
Man, that is so relatable. So easy to put off financial planning when you're juggling work, life, everything else.
But Rich Dad gets it. He acknowledges those challenges, but he also emphasizes we got to prioritize this stuff.
Even finding 30 minutes a day to read, learn, plan, it all adds up, right?
Those small, consistent actions, those are key.
Just like those hours working for pennies, those turned into valuable business lessons for Robert and Mike.
And speaking of small actions, remember how quick Robert and Mike were to want to spend their earnings?
That whole comic book thing.
Oh, yeah.
Kiyosaki uses that to show us how important paying yourself first is.
It's switching from saving what's left to spending what's left after you save. Simple idea, but it changes everything.
Breaking free from needing instant gratification and holding off for something way bigger down the line.
Makes you wonder what other bad money habits we're hanging on to without even realizing. Okay, last obstacle, arrogance.
This one's a little more under the surface, but it's there in Chapter 7.
How so?
Rich Dad, he never stops pushing Robert and Mike to question what they think they know, to admit they don't have it all figured out.
It's like he's teaching them humility, which seems kind of backwards, right? You'd think arrogance comes with success.
But that humility, that's what helps them learn and grow so fast.
They're open to new information, to seeing things from different angles.
And that's what keeps arrogance in check, being open to learning and changing. Wow, when you connect those obstacles to the story, it makes it so much more powerful.
That's Kiyosaki's magic. He's not just telling you what to think, he's making you think along with the characters.
Learning from their mess-ups and their victory.
Exactly. So, ready to jump into the story?
Let's do it. Now that we understand the meaning behind the 7th chapter, let's listen to the storyline summary.
You know, as Chapter 7 wraps up, it kind of leaves you with this quiet little message, you know? It's not something Rich Dad spells out, but it's woven through the whole thing.
I love when authors do that. It's like you hit the end, you're like, oh, I get it now.
Totally. And what clicks here is that overcoming those obstacles, the fear, the cynicism, all of them, it's not like you check them off a list and you're done. It's ongoing.
It's not like you conquer fear once and you're good to go. You got to keep working at it.
Exactly. Kiyosaki, he leaves things open at the end of this chapter, and I think he means to do that.
He wants us to really get that financial success. It's not a destination. It's that whole journey thing, right?
It's a process, yeah. Learning as you go, changing, trying stuff out, tweaking your approach when you hit those bumps. And trust me, the bumps, they're part of it.
It's like he's saying, okay, you got the tools, you got the mindset, now get out there and make it happen. But don't think it'll be a walk in the park.
Exactly. And that's such a powerful message, not even just for money stuff, but for growing as a person too. Accepting that there's always something more to learn, always a way to be better.
I love that. So it's not about this perfect no fear or no bad habit state. It's more like developing those skills, that self-awareness, to deal with those things as they pop up.
Exactly. Progress, not perfection. Right. That's what makes it interesting. Always something new to explore, a new challenge to tackle.
I'm sure. Well, this deep dive has really got me thinking. It's not just the technical stuff with finances. It's the mental game, that mindset, that really makes or breaks it.
Couldn't agree more. Kiyosaki really hits that home in this chapter.
Chapter 7. Overcoming Obstacles. In Chapter 7, Kiyosaki focuses on the common obstacles that prevent people from achieving financial success, despite having the knowledge or opportunities to do so. He identifies 5 primary obstacles: fear, cynicism, laziness, bad habits, and arrogance. These obstacles are often what stand between a person and their financial goals, and Kiyosaki explains how the wealthy learn to overcome them. The first obstacle, fear, is one of the most powerful. Kiyosaki explains that fear, especially the fear of losing money, is a natural emotion. However, the difference between the rich and everyone else is how they handle that fear. He shares that Rich Dad taught him that fear of failure is a necessary part of success. Rich Dad would say, failure inspires winners. Failure defeats losers. Kiyosaki learned that the rich don't let fear paralyze them. Instead, they use failure as a learning tool and keep moving forward. The second obstacle is cynicism, which manifests as self-doubt or negative thinking. Kiyosaki explains that many people talk themselves out of taking risks or pursuing opportunities because they are too cynical or doubtful of success. Rich Dad taught Robert and Mike to avoid listening to others' negative opinions and instead focus on facts and data. He encouraged them to always do their own research and not be swayed by the doubts or fears of others. This mindset allows the wealthy to take calculated risks, while others remain stuck in fear and indecision. Laziness is the third obstacle. Kiyosaki explains that laziness doesn't always mean doing nothing. It often shows up as avoiding what truly matters. He points out that many people are busy with work or daily tasks, but they neglect the important work of managing their finances or planning for their future. Rich Dad advised Robert and Mike to always prioritize their financial education and wealth-building activities, even when life gets busy. The rich overcome laziness by focusing on what motivates them and making time for the things that will lead to financial independence. The fourth obstacle is bad habits. Kiyosaki explains that many people develop poor financial habits that sabotage their ability to build wealth. One example is the habit of spending money impulsively rather than saving and investing. Rich Dad taught the boys the importance of paying yourself first, meaning they should invest in their own financial future before spending on non-essential items. Good financial habits, such as saving and investing consistently, are crucial for long-term success. Finally, arrogance is the fifth obstacle. Arrogance, as Kiyosaki describes it, is ignorance combined with ego. It's the belief that you know everything or that you don't need to learn from others. Rich Dad often said, "What I know makes me money. What I don't know loses me money." The rich constantly seek to learn more and improve their financial knowledge, while arrogance can prevent others from seeking advice or admitting when they need help. By the end of the chapter, Kiyosaki encourages readers to reflect on their own lives and identify which of these obstacles might be holding them back. He explains that overcoming these barriers is essential to achieving financial success. The end of it often said, "What I know." Finally, arrogance is the fifth obstacle. Arrogance, as Kiyosaki describes it, is ignorance combined with ego. It's the belief that you know everything or that you don't need to learn from others. Rich Dad often said, "What I know makes me money. What I don't know loses me money." The rich constantly seek to learn more and improve their financial knowledge, while arrogance can prevent others from seeking advice or admitting when they need help. By the end of the chapter, Kiyosaki encourages readers to reflect on their own lives and identify which of these obstacles might be holding them back. He explains that overcoming these barriers is essential to achieving financial success. The key takeaway is that everyone faces obstacles, but the wealthy learn to recognize and push through them, using failures and challenges as stepping stones to success.
Chapter 8, Getting Started.
Okay.
And we're not just going to summarize
And we're
here.
going for like those golden nuggets of wisdom that you can use like today
Right.
to help us unearth those. We have our expert joining us.
Happy to be here.
Um,
Appreciate that Kiyosaki is all about action.
it's not just theory.
Yeah.
It's about making choices that align with your goals starting right now.
And he does not mince words about that right now part.
Does he? Why do you think he's so adamant that there's no better time than the present?
It's easy to get stuck in the someday trap, you know?
Uh,
Someday when I have more money, more time, more whatever.
Right.
But Kiyosaki is saying that the most powerful moment is now.
Even if you take one small step today.
You're building momentum.
It reminds me of that quote.
The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago,
The second best time is now.
right?
But it's not just about taking any action, right?
Kiyosaki stresses the importance of having a powerful motivator.
A reason greater than reality, as he puts it.
Yes.
What does that mean for someone who might be thinking,
Okay, sounds great. But why should I even care about financial freedom?
that why is different for everyone?
It's not just about piles of money.
Right.
It's about what that money represents.
Okay.
Maybe it's the security of knowing you can weather any storm
Maybe it's the freedom to pursue your passions.
without worrying about a paycheck.
Maybe you want to travel the world
Start your own business or have the resources to give back to your community.
in a meaningful way.
Right.
It's about aligning your money with your values.
Kiyosaki uses the example of wanting to spend more time with family,
Right.
which is something I think a lot of people can relate to.
Sure.
Have you encountered other compelling whys that resonate with people? I've talked to people who dream of early retirement,
Not to lounge around
but to finally write that novel they've always dreamed of.
or to dedicate their time to a cause they're passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
Others want to break free from the corporate grind and build something of their own.
It's about identifying what truly matters to you.
And then letting that drive your financial decisions.
I love that.
It's about having that bigger vision in mind.
And you know what else I find fascinating?
Both sources we've got here highlight the impact our social circles have.
On our relationship with money.
Yeah.
Kiyosaki learned a lot from his rich dad mentor.
And it got me thinking about that saying.
You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
It's so true.
The people we surround ourselves with shape our beliefs and habits,
Yeah.
whether we realize it or not.
If you're constantly around people who are stressed about money.
Complain about their jobs and never seem to get ahead,
Right.
it's easy to fall into that same mindset.
It's like that old saying.
Misery loves company. But on the flip side,
Imagine surrounding yourself with people who are financially savvy,
yeah,
who are driven, and who are living proof that achieving financial freedom is possible.
you start to see what's possible
Yeah.
and you adopt those empowering beliefs and habits.
Right.
It's like you're subconsciously shifting your financial blueprint.
Just by being in that positive and supportive environment.
So it's not just about reading books and listening to podcasts like this one.
Although those are great steps.
Right.
It's about actively curating your social circle.
To support your financial growth.
Yes.
Speaking of taking action.
Kiyosaki is a huge advocate for a habit he calls pay yourself first.
Right.
It sounds simple enough.
But I get the feeling it's one of those things that's
And easy to say, but harder to actually do.
just a simple concept.
But it has profound implications.
Yeah.
Think of it this way.
Most people pay their bills.
Maybe indulge in some wants.
And then whatever's left over they might save.
Right.
But Kiyosaki challenges us to flip that script.
You're saying before anything else.
Even before paying the bills,
Yes.
you're setting aside a portion of your income for your future self.
You got it.
That's a real mental shift, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's about shifting from a scarcity mindset.
To an abundance mindset.
Okay.
Instead of thinking, I can't afford to save.
You're saying, I can't afford not to invest in my future.
Oh, okay. So let's get practical.
Okay.
How can someone listening actually implement this pay yourself first principle?
Is it really as simple as just opening a savings account?
It can be as simple.
Or as sophisticated as you want it to be?
Okay.
The key is to make it automatic.
Set up an automatic transfer from your checking account.
To a savings or investment account the day you get paid.
You can even divide it up.
Maybe a portion goes to a retirement account.
Another chunk goes to a fund money fund.
For a future vacation.
And another portion goes to an emergency fund.
I love that idea of automating it.
It takes the decision making.
And potential for procrastination
Right.
out of the equation. And you know what else resonates with me?
Kiyosaki's emphasis on continuous learning.
Yeah.
It's not just about working for a paycheck.
It's about constantly upgrading your knowledge and skills.
He calls it working to learn, not to earn.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know it might seem counterintuitive,
To maybe take a job for less money.
but if it offers valuable skills or experience,
Right.
that will benefit you in the long run.
It's like he says.
Those skills and experiences become assets themselves.
Yes.
They increase your value in the marketplace.
It's about playing the long game, isn't it?
Precisely.
Knowledge and skills are assets that appreciate over time.
Right.
Just like real estate or stocks.
The more you invest in your financial education.
The more opportunities open up for you.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture,
What Kiyosaki seems to be advocating for is,
a complete mindset shift.
it is.
It's not just about money management.
It's about personal development and self-leadership, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
It's about taking control of your financial destiny.
Rather than simply reacting to circumstances.
And that sense of empowerment is priceless.
Yeah.
It's like that, quote, knowledge is power.
But it's more than that, it's potential.
Right.
And it sounds like Kiyosaki is saying that investing in your financial education,
Is just as crucial as investing in stocks or real estate.
it's about investing in yourself.
Yeah.
Which is always a smart move.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what?
Even with all the knowledge and the best intentions,
Yeah.
we're all human.
We're going to make mistakes along the way.
He definitely does not shy away from that, does he?
He talks about his own financial setbacks as learning experiences.
Exactly.
It's not about being perfect.
It's about being resilient.
Okay.
It's about viewing those inevitable bumps in the road.
Not as failures, but as feedback.
So when things get tough,
Because let's face it, they will.
yeah,
How do we stay motivated? How do we keep that?
reason greater than reality front and center.
That's where having a strong why is so crucial.
When you're clear about why you're on this journey,
When you can visualize what financial freedom will allow you to do and be,
right?
it makes those temporary setbacks easier to navigate.
It's like having that North Star guiding you, even when the seas get rough.
So if we had to distill this entire deep dive,
Into one actionable takeaway.
one thing someone listening could do today
Yeah.
to get started on their path to financial freedom, what would it be?
You know, we've covered a lot.
But if I had to pick one thing.
It would be to start small, but start now.
Okay.
Even if it's just setting aside $5 a day.
Or finally picking up that personal finance book you've been meaning to read.
Take action today.
I love that.
Start small. Start now.
No more waiting for the perfect moment.
And I think it's important to remember that.
Financial freedom isn't a one-size-fits-all destination.
Right.
It's about defining what that looks like for you.
What your reason greater than reality is.
Sure.
And then taking those consistent daily actions to get there.
Absolutely.
It's a journey, not a race.
And the most important step you can take is that first one.
So for anyone listening, ask yourself this.
What's one small step you can take today?
To move closer to your financial goals.
Maybe it's setting up that automatic transfer to your savings account.
Having a conversation with a financial advisor.
Or simply committing to learning something new about money.
Whatever it is, take that step.
Because as we've learned from Kiyosaki.
The best time to start was yesterday,
Right.
but the second best time is now.
Chapter 8, Getting Started. In Chapter 8, Kiyosaki provides practical advice on how to get started on the journey toward financial independence. After laying out the principles of financial literacy and discussing the obstacles that can hold people back, he now offers actionable steps to help readers take control of their financial future. The chapter begins with a motivating message. The hardest part of change is going through the door. The door swings open when you decide to walk through it. This statement sets the tone for the rest of the chapter, encouraging readers to take that first step, no matter how small. Kiyosaki explains that the journey to financial independence doesn't require massive wealth to begin. He urges readers to start where they are and to focus on developing a strong reason for wanting financial freedom. He says that without a strong personal motivation, it's easy to give up when challenges arise. For Kiyosaki, his reason was his desire to be financially free so that he could take care of his family and live life on his own terms. Rich Dad emphasized that having a clear purpose or dream fuels the persistence needed to succeed, even when times get tough. Next, Kiyosaki outlines several steps to get started. One of the most important is to make daily choices that align with your financial goals. He explains that every day, people have a choice. They can either continue with their current habits, or they can take small actions to improve their financial situation. Whether it's reading a book about investing, attending a seminar, or simply saving a bit more money, these small steps add up over time. Kiyosaki emphasizes that financial success is built gradually through consistent learning and smart decision-making. Kiyosaki also discusses the importance of surrounding yourself with the right people. He advises readers to choose their friends carefully, seeking out those who are financially successful or knowledgeable. He shares how Rich Dad constantly encouraged him to learn from people who were smarter than him in specific areas, whether it was real estate, stock markets, or business. Kiyosaki stresses that by learning from others and expanding your network, you can gain valuable insights and opportunities that you might not find on your own. Finally, Kiyosaki encourages readers to take action. He acknowledges that many people hesitate to take the first step because they fear making mistakes or losing money. However, he argues that inaction is often the greatest risk of all. The rich are not afraid to make mistakes because they understand that each mistake brings valuable lessons. Kiyosaki advises readers to start small, take calculated risks, and learn from the experience. He believes that the process of taking action, no matter how imperfect, is what leads to growth and success. By the end of the chapter, Kiyosaki's message is clear. Start now. Don't wait for the perfect opportunity or the perfect plan. Begin building your financial education. Start saving and investing, and continue to learn and grow along the way. The key takeaway is that financial freedom is achieved through consistent action and dedication to learning.
We're finally cracking open the last chapter of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Chapter 9. I'm excited for this one. Kiyosaki really delivers on the actionable advice here, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's like he's giving us the keys to the kingdom, or at least showing us how to build our own. No more theory, we're talking boots on the ground, ready to build that financial freedom.
Totally. Get ready, because this chapter is about more than just understanding money. It's about changing your mindset to really grab hold of that freedom.
You nailed it. This chapter, it's like Kiyosaki hands us a toolkit. Everything we've learned, this is how we use it, practical steps to make it all real.
No kidding. He doesn't waste any time either. First things first, it's like he's saying, stop doing what isn't working. But he's not just saying to stop buying that extra latte every day, is he?
No, not at all. It's bigger than that. He is talking about really taking a hard look at everything in your life, your job, what you do every single day, even those deep down beliefs about money, the ones we pick up without realizing it. It's honesty time, being real with yourself, even if it's uncomfortable.
It's like, whoa, hitting the reset button on your whole life. But how do we even figure out what needs that reset?
That is where becoming a seeker of new ideas, that's where that comes in, I think. Kiyosaki, he challenges us, right?
Yeah.
He wants us to actively look for ways to learn, ways to grow. Could be anything, books, seminars, or even just talking to people who are already financially successful.
So it's being proactive. It's like we're on a treasure hunt for financial knowledge.
Yeah.
But he doesn't want us to just read about it, does he? There's that whole take action thing Kiyosaki's always talking about.
Oh, absolutely. Kiyosaki, he's all about action. Putting what you learn to work, it's like having a toolbox full of every tool you could ever need is useless if you never build anything, right?
Totally. It's like he's saying, get out of your comfort zone, even if you mess up sometimes.
Yeah, you got it. He actually wants us to get comfortable with, failing forward. Every time you try something, even if it blows up in your face, you still learn something. You learn what not to do next time, and that's valuable.
Makes me think of that story Kiyosaki tells about making offers on properties, even before he had a clue how he would pay for them. Seems kind of crazy, but he learned a ton from it.
Exactly. Perfect example of that failing forward in action. Putting himself out there, even if he got shot down. He learned about the market, how to negotiate, even his own risk tolerance. Which actually brings us to another one of his big points. Finding a mentor.
Now, this is something I think is so important. It's like having a guide, someone who's been there and done that, leading you through the financial jungle.
And not just any mentor. He's specific about that too, right? Kiyosaki stresses finding someone who's an expert in what you're interested in. If you love real estate, find someone killing it in real estate. Learn from them, their wins, but also, those important mistakes they made.
Someone who can give you that insider knowledge. Leverage their experience to make your own path. But how do you even go about finding a mentor like that? And what should you look for?
Right. That's the question, isn't it? It's a lot of, networking is huge. Going to events, the kind of places your ideal mentor would be. And honestly, sometimes it's just about reaching out, finding someone you admire, someone who really inspires you, and seeing if they're open to talking.
It's like finding someone who not only has the success you want, but who embodies the kind of, the values, the work ethic that you respect.
You got it. You want to learn from the best. And speaking of aiming high, Kiyosaki, he doesn't want us to just find a mentor. He wants us to think big in all areas of our lives. Remember that story about how he invested in that apartment complex? Everyone he knew told him it was too risky, but him and his wife, they just went for it.
They didn't let fear get in the way of a huge opportunity. It's like sometimes playing it safe, that's the riskiest move of all.
Yeah.
But thinking big, it can be kind of paralyzing. How do you go from, thinking small to really embracing those huge, almost impossible goals?
I think it starts with really looking at what's holding you back. What are those beliefs that are limiting you? Really ask yourself, what if I could achieve anything? What would that look like? And don't be afraid to really dream big, even if it seems impossible. But Kiyosaki, he's not all pie in the sky either. He's real about how financial freedom, it's not a one and done kind of deal. It's a journey.
And so it's not like you hit some finish line and then that's it. You're just on vacation forever.
Not at all. Things change, right? The markets, the whole financial landscape, it's always moving. So we have to be learning all the time, adapting, growing our knowledge. Kiyosaki, he really emphasizes staying updated. Like, what are the trends? What are the new opportunities? And just never stop being curious, you know?
Never stop learning, which is basically what this deep dive is all
Yeah.
about, right? It really is. And what I like about Kiyosaki, there's this urgency to what he's saying. It's like, don't wait. Your financial future, it starts right now.
It's a call to action for sure. He's basically handing us all the tools and saying, all right, go build something amazing with this.
Which, I don't know about you, but that's exciting and also kind of intimidating at the same time, right?
Oh, 100%. But the thing is, Kiyosaki, he's not trying to trick us. He's real about it, about the hard work, the dedication it takes. But, and this is huge, he really believes anyone can achieve financial freedom if they're willing to put in the effort.
He's not about those shortcuts or get-rich-quick schemes. It's about building something real, something that lasts.
Yeah, building that solid foundation, it takes knowledge, action, and you got to be ready to learn as you go, adapt.
Absolutely. And don't forget, you don't have to do this alone. Finding a mentor, building that network of people who get it, that's huge.
Couldn't agree more. Surround yourself with the right people, those who lift you up. So important.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it really makes you think. If you had to pick one thing, just one action step inspired by this book, what would it be? What's one small step you can take today to get closer to those financial goals? Keep that question in mind as we sign off.
Chapter 9. Still want more? Here are some to-dos. In the final chapter, Kiyosaki provides a list of actionable steps for readers who are serious about applying the lessons from the book and starting their journey toward financial freedom. The chapter is designed as a practical guide to help readers take immediate action and continue developing their financial education. Kiyosaki opens with a powerful message: stop doing what you're doing if you want a different result. This highlights the need to break away from old habits and routines that aren't contributing to financial growth. One of the first actions Kiyosaki suggests is to look for new ideas. He explains that the world is full of opportunities, but most people aren't trained to see them. By opening yourself up to new experiences and possibilities, whether it's reading books, attending seminars, or meeting new people, you increase your ability to spot financial opportunities that others may miss. Kiyosaki emphasizes the importance of staying curious and always looking for ways to expand your knowledge. He notes that the most successful people are always learning and adapting to new circumstances. Next, Kiyosaki encourages readers to take action. He argues that many people fail to achieve financial success because they are afraid to take the first step. They might be waiting for the perfect opportunity or feel that they don't know enough yet. However, Kiyosaki stresses that action is the key to success. He advises readers to start small, whether it's making an offer on a property, buying a few shares of stock, or starting a side business. The important thing is to get started, even if you're not sure you have all the answers. He explains that taking action, even in small ways, will lead to experience and learning. Kiyosaki also suggests that readers find a mentor. He explains that one of the best ways to accelerate your financial education is by learning from someone who is already successful. A mentor can offer guidance, help you avoid mistakes, and provide valuable insights that you might not find on your own. Kiyosaki credits much of his success to the mentorship he received from his rich dad, who guided him through the complexities of building wealth. He advises readers to seek out mentors in the areas they want to succeed in, whether it's real estate, investing, or entrepreneurship. Another step Kiyosaki recommends is to make offers. He shares his own experience of making offers on properties even when he wasn't sure how he would finance them. He explains that making offers teaches you about the market, helps you negotiate, and forces you to think creatively. Even if the offers are rejected, the process itself is a valuable learning experience. Kiyosaki believes that taking action, even when things aren't perfect, is what separates those who achieve financial success from those who don't. The chapter closes with a reminder to keep learning. Kiyosaki emphasizes that the journey to financial freedom is ongoing. Even after you've made progress, it's important to continue learning and adapting. He advises readers to stay informed about financial markets, new investment opportunities, and business trends. The world of finance is constantly changing, and those who remain curious and open to learning will continue to find success. The final message of the book is one of empowerment. Financial freedom is available to anyone who is willing to learn, take risks, and take action. Chapter 9. Still want more? Here are some to-dos. In the final chapter, Kiyosaki provides a list of actionable steps for readers who are serious about applying the lessons from the book and starting their journey toward financial freedom. The chapter is designed as a practical guide to help readers take immediate action and continue developing their financial education. Kiyosaki opens with a powerful message: stop doing what you're doing if you want a different result. This highlights the need to break away from old habits and routines that aren't contributing to financial growth. One of the first actions Kiyosaki suggests is to look for new ideas. He explains that the world is full of opportunities, but most people aren't trained to see them. By opening yourself up to new experiences and possibilities, whether it's reading books, attending seminars, or meeting new people, you increase your ability to spot financial opportunities that others may miss. Kiyosaki emphasizes the importance of staying curious and always looking for ways to expand your knowledge. He notes that the most successful people are always learning and adapting to new circumstances. Next, Kiyosaki encourages readers to take action. He argues that many people fail to achieve financial success because they are afraid to take the first step. They might be waiting for the perfect opportunity or feel that they don't know enough yet. However, Kiyosaki stresses that action is the key to success. He advises readers to start small, whether it's making an offer on a property, buying a few shares of stock, or starting a side business. The important thing is to get started, even if you're not sure you have all the answers. He explains that taking action, even in small ways, will lead to experience and learning. Kiyosaki also suggests that readers find a mentor. He explains that one of the best ways to accelerate your financial education is by learning from someone who is already successful. A mentor can offer guidance, help you avoid mistakes, and provide valuable insights that you might not find on your own. Kiyosaki credits much of his success to the Chapter 9. Still want more? Here are some to-dos. In the final chapter, Kiyosaki provides a list of actionable steps for readers who are serious about applying the lessons from the book and starting their journey to success, and from those who don't. Readers are taking consistent action. Building wealth. He advises readers to seek out mentors in the areas they want to succeed in, whether it's real estate, investing, or entrepreneurship. Another step Kiyosaki recommends is to make offers. He shares his own experience of making offers on properties even when he wasn't sure how he would finance them. He explains that making offers teaches you about the market, helps you negotiate, and forces you to think creatively. Even if the offers are rejected, the process itself is a valuable learning experience. Kiyosaki believes that taking action, even when things aren't perfect, is what separates those who achieve financial success from those who don't. The chapter closes with a reminder to keep learning. Kiyosaki emphasizes that the journey to financial freedom is ongoing. Even after you've made progress, it's important to continue learning and adapting. He advises readers to stay informed about financial markets, new investment opportunities, and business trends. The world of finance is constantly changing, and those who remain curious and open to learning will continue to find success. The final message of the book is one of empowerment. Financial freedom is available to anyone who is willing to learn, take risks, and take action. With this, Kiyosaki wraps up Rich Dad, Poor Dad, providing readers with a roadmap to follow as they begin their journey toward financial independence. He encourages them to take the lessons learned, apply them in their daily lives, and continue growing their financial knowledge. The key takeaway is that financial success requires both a change in mindset and a commitment to taking consistent action.
Hey everyone, and welcome back. You know that feeling, right? When you finish a book that really gets you thinking and you just want to chat about it with someone. Well, that's what this whole deep dive is about. We're wrapping up Rich Dad, Poor Dad today, and we're going to dig into the most important takeaways and how you can actually use them.
What I find fascinating about how Kiyosaki wraps things up is that it's not just a summary, it's like he's handing you his own personal playbook, kind of challenging you to take action, like right now.
Yeah, okay, I like that, a playbook. So What are some of the biggest lessons he really emphasizes in those final chapters?
One that stands out is taking responsibility for your own financial education. And he's pretty blunt about it. Traditional schooling often doesn't cut it.
He's definitely critical of how we're taught to think about money. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
get good grades, get a good job, but then what?
Exactly. He says that path often leads straight to the rat race, working for someone else's dream, trading time for money, and never reaching true freedom.
So it's like he's saying, wake up, people. You have to understand how money works if you want any control over your financial future.
And he's not just talking about, like, balancing your checkbook here. He's talking about making money work for you, building assets that create passive income, and breaking free from that trap of trading time for dollars.
Which is where the whole assets versus liabilities thing
Yeah,
comes in, right?
exactly. He hammers that point home throughout the book, but it's really driven home in the conclusion. Remember that example? How he sees a house as a liability, not an asset.
Oh, yeah. That one definitely ruffled some feathers. But it makes you think about what really creates wealth in a different way.
It does. He's challenging us to look beyond what we've always been told, to analyze where our money is going. Are we buying things that are really assets, things that put money in our pockets? Or are we getting stuck with liabilities that just create more debt, more dependence?
It's like she's pushing us to be more financially savvy, to think harder about our spending habits and start making choices that line up with, our actual long-term goals.
Yes. And one of the most practical pieces of advice he gives is that whole concept of paying yourself first.
Okay, yeah, let's dig into that a bit. What does he even mean by that, and how do we actually put it into practice?
Well, he's basically saying that instead of waiting till the end of the month and saving whatever's left, you prioritize your own financial well-being right from the start.
So before the bills, before groceries, before anything else, you take out a chunk of your income for saving, investing, for building that financial future.
You got it. Shifting your mindset from, I'll save what's left, to, I'm paying myself first because my financial well-being is a priority.
That's a pretty powerful shift in how you see things, like treating your financial future as a non-negotiable expense, just like rent or a mortgage.
Exactly. And he doesn't give a magic percentage to put aside. Everyone's different. It's more about starting wherever you are, even if it's a small amount at first, and slowly increasing it over time as you're able.
So building that habit, that discipline of putting your financial well-being front and center.
Precisely. And Kiyosaki argues that just that one shift, that one change in how you think can make a huge difference in your financial health long term.
It's about taking control of your money instead of feeling like you're always playing catch up.
And that whole idea of taking control, it ties into another huge theme in Kiyosaki's conclusion, overcoming fear.
Oh, absolutely. Fear of failure, fear of losing money, fear of the unknown. They can all hold us back from going after financial opportunities.
100%. But he argues that it's not that successful people don't feel fear. They've just figured out how to manage it and take calculated risks.
It's more about acknowledging the fear, but not letting it completely stop you from taking action. Right.
Right. He actually encourages people to embrace the fear a bit, to see it as a sign that you're stepping outside your comfort zone and going after something big.
So not being reckless, but being strategic and informed, even when you're feeling afraid.
Exactly. He stresses doing your research, understanding the risks and the rewards, and then making an informed decision.
It's about being in the driver's seat of your financial journey. Don't let fear be the one steering you off course.
You know, another powerful thing he talks about in the conclusion is the importance of having the right people around you.
He brings that up throughout the book, yeah. How the people we surround ourselves with can either lift us up or hold us back.
Exactly. And in these final chapters, he really zeroes in on the value of mentors, of having people in your life who are already more financially savvy.
It's like he's saying, look, you don't have to figure this all out alone. Find guidance. Learn from those who have already achieved what you're aiming for.
And he talks about how important it is to build a network of people who think like you, who are also on a mission to grow financially.
Creating that supportive community, a group that can share what they know, offer encouragement, and keep each other accountable.
Absolutely. Because the road to financial freedom, well, it has its bumps. It's way easier to handle those challenges when you've got a supportive crew right there with you.
Now, Kiyosaki's a big advocate for entrepreneurship. How does he bring that into the conclusion? What specific advice does he give to people who want to start their own thing?
He makes it clear that for him, owning your own business is a big part of escaping that rat race, but he's realistic about it too. You know, it's not for everyone, and It's no get-rich-quick scheme.
Takes guts, resilience, a whole lot of hustle, that's for sure.
You got it. But what I find interesting is how he breaks down entrepreneurship into these principles anyone can use, even if you're not, like, launching a huge company tomorrow.
Ooh, okay, give me an example. What's something specific he's a big proponent of?
One thing that comes to mind is how much he stresses finding a need, something missing in the market, and filling that gap. He talks about how his rich dad was always looking for problems to solve.
So it's not just about having a genius idea, it's knowing what people actually need and creating that product or service that delivers.
Exactly. And that goes right along with his thing about adding value. He's adamant that good businesses, they're built on making life better for other people somehow.
Makes sense. It's bigger than just profit, right?
Yeah.
It's about making a difference, creating something people see as valuable that they'll happily pay for.
Exactly. And, another key piece of advice he gives for aspiring entrepreneurs, building a strong team. He really emphasizes that.
He talks about that with his real estate stuff, right?
Huh.
How he learned the hard way that you can't do it all yourself.
Yeah, he learned that you got to surround yourself with people who are good at what they do, people who have strengths that you maybe don't have.
So it's about knowing your own strengths and weaknesses and building a team that makes up for those gaps.
Yeah, and this also connects to what he says about delegation. He believes that your time as an entrepreneur is your most valuable asset.
So no micromanaging every tiny detail.
Yeah.
Right? Delegate, 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 so you can focus on the big picture, the growth of the business.
You got it. And something else that really struck me in Kiyosaki's conclusion was his focus on mindset. He keeps coming back to that throughout the book, but it's super powerful in those final chapters.
He's really set on the idea that your mindset, what you believe about money and success, can either help you succeed or hold you back.
Completely. He talks about how our thoughts create our reality, how our money mindset shapes every financial decision we make, and ultimately, our results.
So if you think you're just bad with money or that wealth is only for a lucky few, well, you'll probably keep making choices that back that up.
Exactly. But if you believe that you can create wealth, that financial abundance is possible for you, you're more likely to take those steps that will actually get you there.
Shifting from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset.
Precisely. And one really practical tip he gives for cultivating a more abundant mindset, surround yourself with people who are already financially successful.
It's like that saying, you become the average of the 5 people you're around the most.
100%. If you're constantly with people who are struggling financially, griping about money all the time, reinforcing those limiting beliefs, well, it's going to be a lot tougher for you to step into your own power.
So being intentional about who you spend time with. Surround yourself with folks who inspire you, who challenge you, who support your growth.
Exactly. And another key aspect of mindset that Kiyosaki talked about is the importance of always learning. He truly believes financial education isn't a one-time thing. It's a journey,
It's about being curious, always looking for new knowledge, always expanding what you understand about money, investing, building wealth.
Yes. And he really wants readers to be proactive about it. Read books, go to seminars, find mentors, completely immerse yourself in the world of finance.
Take ownership of your financial literacy. Don't just rely on traditional institutions or the experts.
Now, before we finish up our deep dive into Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I want to touch on something I think is super powerful. His emphasis on giving back.
He talks about that in terms of his own philanthropy,
Yeah.
right? How he sees financial freedom is this way to make a bigger impact in the world.
Totally. He says that when you're financially secure, you have more freedom to help causes you believe in, to give generously, to make a real difference in other people's lives.
It's about aligning your money with your values, using what you have to create positive change.
Exactly. And that's such an important message, especially now there's so much focus on me, myself, and I, and material things. Kiyosaki reminds us that money is just a tool. It's not good or bad in itself. It's all about how you use it.
It's recognizing that financial freedom isn't just about having a lot of money. It's about having the freedom to use that money to make a difference.
Exactly. So thinking about everything we've talked about from Rich Dad, Poor Dad, what's sticking with you? What resonates?
One thing that's really hit home for me is his focus on taking action. It's so easy to get stuck in that cycle of just reading and gathering information. But none of it matters if you don't use it.
If he's big on knowledge without action is meaningless.
Totally. He's basically like, don't just sit on the sidelines of your own life, especially your financial life. Take charge, make decisions, go create the future you want. And honestly, I think that applies to so much more than just money.
I'm right there with you. Okay, before we move on to our final thoughts, got to circle back to something we mentioned earlier. Finding those mentors, building a network of people who get it. Kiyosaki really hits that hard in his conclusion.
He talks about how crucial his rich dad was as a mentor, someone who challenged him, broadened his perspective, guided him toward that financial freedom he was looking for.
For sure. And he's a big advocate for people seeking out mentors in their own lives, people who are already living the kind of financial success they want.
Finding those who've already walked the walk and are willing to share what they've learned, what they see.
And, finding a mentor, it's not always about some formal thing. It could be as simple as connecting with someone online, joining a group, or even just reaching out to someone you admire for a quick chat over coffee.
It's about being proactive. Put yourself out there. Look for guidance, look for support from people who inspire you.
Now, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's been super influential in how we talk about personal finance, but it's not the only book with great advice.
Oh, there's a ton of books out there, each with its own perspective, its own style.
For sure. And it's a good thing to explore those different viewpoints, find authors and books that really resonate with your goals, your values.
So for our listeners who are feeling ready to keep learning, what are some books you'd recommend they check out after Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
A few that come to mind are The Millionaire Fast Lane by M.J. DeMarco. That one really challenges how we think about retirement and building wealth. The Automatic Millionaire by David Bach is great. It gives you this simple system for automating your finances. And you can't go wrong with a classic, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, all about the power of mindset.
Those are all great suggestions. I've read a couple of those myself. Definitely recommend checking them out. It's so interesting, though, how Kiyosaki talks about education throughout the book. He doesn't shy away from challenging the usual way of thinking, does he?
It's funny because he's not anti-education at all. He actually really emphasizes its importance, but he's definitely critical of how prepared traditional education leaves you for the real world, especially now when things are changing so fast.
Right. Like he's saying, okay, knowing how to write a good essay is cool and all, but does that teach you anything about managing your money or building a business in this day and age?
Exactly. He's saying academic skills are important, but they often aren't enough to really thrive in today's economy. You need that financial literacy, that entrepreneurial way of thinking, and a mindset that's all about embracing change and opportunity, not shying away from it.
Being adaptable, being resourceful, creating your own opportunities instead of just waiting for a traditional job to fall in your lap.
Yeah, that's where the whole comparison of his rich dad and poor dad is really powerful, His poor dad, even with all his education, he struggled financially. Why? Because he just didn't have that financial know-how, and he held on to that old idea of security, a steady paycheck, even when it wasn't working.
While his rich dad, even without a fancy degree, achieved financial freedom his own way. Entrepreneurship, real estate, really understanding how money works.
Exactly. And Kiyosaki's using that contrast to show that financial success isn't about how many diplomas you have. It's all about your mindset, your financial knowledge, and how willing you are to get out there and actually take action.
Be a lifelong learner, always looking for new knowledge, always trying to understand more about money and building wealth.
Absolutely. And one of the most important things Kiyosaki talks about, especially in context of education, is the importance of having a mentor.
Oh, for sure. He talks about how his rich dad was his mentor, pushing him, challenging him, and opening his eyes to a whole new way of thinking about money.
Yeah. And he wants readers to find mentors in their own lives, people who are already living the kind of financial success they're aiming for.
Because sometimes you don't know what you don't know, right? A mentor can be that guiding light, offering support and a roadmap for making your way through the world of finance.
And mentorship doesn't have to be this big formal thing. Sometimes it's just connecting with someone you admire, joining a group, maybe reaching out to someone for a quick chat. You never know.
Just being proactive, surrounding yourself with people and information that push you to think bigger and make smarter choices.
Yes. Okay, so as we wrap up our deep dive into Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I want to emphasize this is really just the start of the conversation. It's about taking all these ideas, trying them on, making them your own.
It is. And if you haven't yet, definitely grab a copy of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Read the book. You can find links in the description.
You might not agree with every single thing he says, but you can't deny Kiyosaki got people talking about money and wealth in a whole new way.
He did. It's a book that makes you question things, think differently, and realize you have the power to create the financial future you want. And hey, even if you read it before, go back and read it again. You'd be surprised what you might pick up the second time around. All right, before we go, what's one last takeaway you want to leave our listeners with?
That financial freedom, it's a choice, not something that's only for a select few. It's out there for anyone who's willing to do the work, learn, and take control.
Powerful stuff. It's not about luck. It's about choice, knowledge, and action. On that note, listeners, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more deep dives into great books and ideas that can help you level up your life. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep exploring the world.